Of course. Sure. So back again. Always good to be able to do these things with you, Gary. I was just tremendously proud of what you've been able to accomplish in terms of community. So name is Blake Baxter. My let's see. I basically wear two hats. One is that I have an animation studio. We developed essentially a new way from the former linear process of doing animation, which is pretty encumbered, and it's just you have to go step by step to see the final product, and then you make all the notes at the very end, and then you have to restart from the beginning and go back through. And we created an iterative approach to that. This has unlocked some new ways of experiencing animation in media types, which has been a lot of fun. And we essentially unlock transmedia at the same time. Our philosophy is kind of look at everything as IP ecosystems and then how to reuse assets across the various ways of engagement, right? Whether that's from live experiences to standard linear content like TV shows or feature films to TikTok videos and merchandise along the way. Can go into that, of course, a lot further. And then the other hat I wear have an investment group that's based in Singapore called Black Run Partners. So we look at scaling and bringing companies essentially to public markets, but that doesn't always have to be the case. But we see the scalability behind companies, usually not startups, but it is things that have an interesting and unique value proposition, but might not have the value completely tapped into to be unlocking to the true potential that it can be in. So yeah, that's about it, Gary. Unless you think I should add anything else, you probably know me better than I know myself at this point. So yeah, uh oh, am I muted? Can they hear me? Really? Huh? They're saying they can hear me, but not you, huh? Uh oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we were very deliberate and really thoughtful in what we were doing. Right, we wanted to battle test it to make sure that it can do all the things of the capabilities that we would want to see out of it. Right, where we had basically a thesis, and then we knew that it had let's call it the baseline capabilities, but then we wanted to push it further to see what else it could possibly do. When we were connected with HP, and then of course with that it was HP, Nvidia, AMD, Intel as well, and even Adobe. Um, I think what was really interesting with it for them and for us is that this mutual relationship where most of the time they use ISVs, independent service software vendors, and how their what they do works on their machines, right? And usually they have to stay within their lane, but we kind of unlock the ability to show off all of the people or all of the ISVs that we use, where it's then showing them coming together, and how they, because that's how productions typically work, where it's a huge stack of different softwares and middleware in between, if you will, and then how it works on the hardware in front of it. And so we started to just show off really fun, really cool stuff. And then that just developed into this long relationship that we've had with them now, where they see people are able to come up to us when we're at a conference, or just in general when we have some of our open houses and things like that, for people to see how the hardware actually interacts with it, where we then talk about how we use the right products, right, to get the job done, and the best products with it. So we show the various computers that are in their entire arsenal of how it works with the various ones that we do. If we need a higher clock rate from a CPU, if we need more power out of the GPUs, we're able to demonstrate that and the reason for it, right? So it's in that action. The easiest way to explain it, I guess, Gary, and not to say that we're anywhere near the GOAT of Michael Jordan, but I would say if you just saw those shoes without any association, before he did a slam dunk from free throw line and everything like that, and they were just random shoes sitting at Foot Locker or wherever, and you saw them next to Reebok and LA Gear, I think was a brand at the time too, and just everything, right? All the brands that are out there, and you wouldn't be able to discern what it is, right? And long ago, we were told, like, people aren't coming to a conference just to look at a CPU or a GPU chip sitting in a box or just sitting in a glass acrylic container in front of them. They want to see what can be done with it. And some people have said that we've been able to show what it looks like to jump from the free throw line with the computers, with the activities that we're doing on them. So, yeah. Yeah. No, this is it's always good, to kind of like share and talk through this, right? And I feel like you and I just personally, we've talked about it a ton, Gary, right? It's a story. You're really trying to, tell a story with it. And I think it's how to simplify it in the most basic terms, right? In simplification, because even oftentimes, even when I'm explaining what IEL does, it's always interesting because I ask someone, what do you know about animation as the process, right? Even people think that animation and is less expensive than live action a lot of times, and it's actually it's quite expensive, right? People think like just the various reasons for it being out there. And it's really coming down to it of like, okay, how do I, just summarize this and have a hook that pulls someone in the very, very beginning, so then they have more interest in it, right? And so it comes down to, yes, there's like the elevator pitch, or what's that hooking moment of that so many people of all these successful companies that go on to do really well, what their initial hooks were. But I think that's one of the most basic things. It's like, don't overcomplicate it, right? Distill it down to just what you are doing objectively, right? And why it'll work as a business in terms of what's the dollars and cents behind it, right? How are you going to make money at the end of the day? And I think one thing that a lot of people also don't, and it depends on the stage too, right? Because, angel rounds, it's going to be very difficult to kind of articulate this, but they also want to see the vision of where you're going with a company, and then also where the exit is, right? What you're envisioning for that, if you're able to stay on the mark for that as well. And I think that a lot of people are also unable to kind of show some KPIs, right? The metrics of what they've already accomplished, what they're trying to accomplish, and where they're going. And then also not letting, in that time period of that, they keep on pushing out their deck, etc. Where, you know, I tell people this is that if the biggest issue that you have is if you're not able to bring money on, then what, right? Does a company just go away, right? Do you continue? What are you able to do to get over the barriers? Because the train should always continue to go. It shouldn't be waiting at each stop for different participants to come on, because if they see that, they have all the leverage in the world, right? And if you don't allow that leverage to happen, then you're going to be able to continue and continue and drive, and it's definitely not an easy journey by any means, but it is still extremely beneficial in the long run. Yeah. 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 No, I think that's exactly it, right? To see these big movements, to see these big motions that happen, right? And even when when it's like there is that spotlight on you. An example of that, again, kind of, I'll just use IEL as example, is that when we first came out with doing some of the conferences with HP, and people would come by, they're like, wow, this is insane, and there's a lot of amazing feedback. And then we'd see them maybe, you know, at another conference, 4 later from that one, and it was, yeah, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever, later, even a year, and then they come by and they might talk, for a few seconds, and then what we notice is that some of them just assume that it was the same thing from the year before, or 6 months before, whatever. And we're like, no, this is completely different. And they're like, oh, what's different? And then we show them, and they're like, whoa, I was not expecting for this level of a leap, right? For example, we started developing out something that we're calling authentic engagement AI. Background is in sociology, socioeconomic theory, but in sociology, it's always been around nature versus nurture, right? And if you look at AI in general, and the nature side and the humans is DNA, right? And the nurture side is the life experience that you've gone through, which always I always kind of say it's actually fiction when you think of it, and it's not to dismiss things. It's just we've always had a lens on things. It really did happen, right? But it's what you absorb. It's kind of this your own personal journey of the story that's there, and that impact on the quote on your DNA is how things exhibit itself completely differently. People can have the same exact experience standing right next to each other, but because of your own life experience and the zigzags along the way, it exhibits itself differently. So then, if you actually take that same philosophy and thinking and apply it into AI, if you can take an LLM, put a RAG model on top, and then a character Bible, like from our characters that we're showing off, and suddenly get a personality where this character's in front of you, engaging with you as that character is. And so we see this as sort of an advancement of storytelling, and not and there's a lot of other applications that's outside of media and entertainment, but focusing on media and entertainment that allows us to then have an entire brain. And what we've developed is something that's an on-prem, so it's an offline model sitting on some of the amazing computers that we're working with. But now someone can actually go up to one of our characters, for example, Ruby is the name of one, and you can have a conversation with her, and she's going to explain it to you from her lens, right? She doesn't have the capability of telling you how to, build a bomb like you hear about, or some of the LLMs out there, because they don't have the rails on it. And there are LLMs that have rails and everything like that. This just goes a bit further to have that sort of impact overall. We're building also like vision on it, so she can actually see who you are, and the various elements around it too. We can also turn things off as well. But one of the things I thought was really remarkable is one of our early versions, like at NAB, we were showing her off. She Some friends went up, and one of them asked friends, colleagues, and from industry and stuff. They asked, "What is the meaning of life?" And she went through this pretty lengthy monologue, and it was pretty provocative, because of how she just viewed it. Right? She's like, you can count the grains of the sand, but sometimes you just need to step back and look at the beautiful beach in front of you. Like these whole like very poetic kind of things in there, and all that script is all brand new, right? So she was essentially being creative at the same time, which a lot of people talk about AI's in, incapable of doing. However, you want to see the creativity, but we were just really blown away from the results, and that's moving forward, and we're going to be showing versions of that later on. But I guess the point being in it all, Gary, is that to constantly show new, exciting things, that whatever you're doing, whatever you're developing, so then when people do come to see you again, they're like, oh, wow, there's that, shocking moment of like, you're really not letting anything hold you back. So, Where is I actually don't see it up. Yeah, I don't have it on. It's open. Yeah, it's blank. Sorry. Sorry, bud. Um, yeah, yeah. It really depends, right? I would say, and it's always going to be how I start everything out. It always depends. There's a lot of variables to consider, right? I would say go after a very target market, right? If that's regional based, so be it, right? If it is industry based, so be it as well. I would say go back to where is the biggest issue around it, right? And or the gap that needs to be filled the best, right? If it's a landing page, you also don't want people to like sit there for you know um, for months waiting for a product to come out. I would say do it to garner attention and garner interest, right? And yeah, that's a good way to do it. I don't think that a lot of people are just going to just you're going to have to drive traffic to the landing page. So think about what your entire marketing thing looks like, because that just needs to be it just needs to be targeted, right? And leverage there. The other thing I think for something like this, it's also what type of meetings are you going after, right? Is it just okay? Here's a call of 10 people, same company, same org, etc. Also, another thing too is that people are looking at is just what happens with the data that you are you collecting it, right? Is it completely owned by the company that is providing it? Look into the various let's call them pitfalls and what people are becoming a lot more aware of on the technologies stack side of when they're engaging with AI. It has been one of the big things that we've kind of encountered is where it's like, okay, so we're doing all this and using this platform, et cetera, but then what happens with that data, as I was saying? The other thing too is if you're going after sort of like more board meetings and things like that, what framework are you using? Are you using sort of a Robert's Rules of Order for guidance on it? There's a lot of particulars, I guess, that just unlock a lot of questions, but also potential guidance to so that there's a strong product at the end of the day. Um, you know, and really just how you have to be very honest with yourself of like how far along you are in making the product you're trying to do. Yeah. Does Twitch have like subtitles you can like turn on that they can like? Oh, oh yeah, for everyone. Yeah, since everyone can hear me on Twitch. Yeah, so the question was, is it better to have a polished deck or a rough MVP? Right, Gary? Uh, good, good. I mean, I would say anymore, right? You're not going to go very far with the deck because of the ability to being able to build so rapidly and so quickly out there. You know, some conversations amongst the community and AI is that, you know, in the future it's just going to people are just going to have their own personalized apps to do the functions that they need to do because that's where the level of, you know, let's call it vibe coding, not let's call it, but it is called vibe coding, but where that evolution goes to. Um, so I would say is that if yeah, you should have both. You need to be able to kind of start to prove that you have the ability to execute again based off of things that aren't necessarily um, again, people want to make sure that the only thing holding you back isn't their money, right? So you need to be able to just keep on proving that you have something. If you don't have the MVP um, or a version or, you know, pre MVP, if you will, right? You know, something that is able to kind of show what you're thinking, what you're doing, along with the deck. I would say um, those are two kind of like less than valuable scenarios there. Yeah. Because also, if you do have a ref MVP, you do need a pretty polished deck at the same time. Yeah, exactly. And as you're saying that too, just to kind of go into it of what you were just saying too, Gary, right? Is that the deck is really supposed to be a story of what your company is and what you're accomplishing, right? So the MVP is just helping with that guidance as well. Um, I would say out there too is that you know, call it maybe 10 years ago, a little less than that, the word vaporware started to become a thing, right? There's a lot of promises, and so if you haven't even been able to go down the pathway to actually test your own thesis, right? Investors going to just ignore you for the most part. Yeah, I mean, what it's kind of sounds like, it almost sounds like a Zillow in a way, where yeah, like it just sounds like it's like a marketplace platform, which they're always great. And so if there's not one currently in Dubai that's utilizing that activity, um, then yeah, I think that'll be beneficial. You know, um, to me, it sounds like some things that we currently do have in the U.S. Right, like you have what was it, Lynda.com, right, where you need a repairman, you need a plumber, you need a anything really, and you put in a request in your location, and then all of a sudden, I mean, your phone will be ringing for 2 months with spam, but you'll still get people responding and replying back to it, and that's a way to drum up business, right? So if this is lacking in the region, right? If it's specific just to Dubai, but I would also look at it as is what is it that's needed to consolidate, right? What this is in um, a large marketplace that's not just specific to like one city within a country. I would look beyond that and whatever helps with regulations too. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah. So that is just people who are in software engineering looking to get work in the 805. Yeah, I think that's a very like let's call it broad question, right? And I would say is that the world is quite massive and pretty connected now. And so if you're kind of just looking at the 805 as a specific location, why, right? Just asking yourself. It's not to me by any means. It's just, you know, what is your reasoning behind that? And if that's the case, then you need to reach out to people very specifically to the 805 area, right? And kind of put your meet as many people as you possibly can, right? Kissing frogs, if you will, until it turns into clients. When it comes down to software dev, what is it that you're actually doing? Are you full stack? Are you UI UX person? Are you very broad? What languages do you know? Yeah, I think there's a lot to be there. But then beyond that, again, it's why are you specifically looking at only the 805 when it is in this unlocked arena where I have friends that have clients all around the world who are kind of independent contractor software developers too. Even some of them live in 805, right? And the way that they've kind of launched their individual consultancy, advisory practices, etc. It's actually kind of just spreading their wings and going after anywhere and everywhere that they might be able to find business to build up the catalog that they have for referrals eventually. Yeah. Um, I mean, this turns into like kind of a theoretical kind of question, right? And it's sort of like trying to have a crystal ball to look at the future. And I'm not sure, to be honest, right? I think that's really it. I think what that statement really is more about you can do a lot more with fewer people than you ever could before, right? And that's sort of like what you kind of unpack from it. It's because it extends so much, right? And I would also look at AI as like not a replacement. And this is being said all over the place. This is nothing new or profound, right? But AI isn't a replacement for anything. It's just another tool, right? There was a really good interview that was done. I highly recommend everyone to kind of like watch it. There's a snippet, like 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. Maybe it's longer, but from the CEO for the company that makes Grand Theft Auto, right? And he talks about how it's basically here's big data stacks, right? And then you have a tremendous amount of processing power to take those data sets and create whatever responses it is, right? Which is, essentially machine learning, which is AI. It's, kind of blended at this point. But again, it's utilizing that as a tools to then enhance whatever you're currently able to do. And I think that I've been talking about this in a way where it's like look at the old names for things, right? So if like you're looking at some of the platforms out there that more around video content and creative content, like Higgsfield is one, Luma AI is one. There's a whole variety of them, clean, but it's almost like more like a rendering engine semantically, to look at it that way. And then as that happens and you explore where you want the final output to look like, etc., that kind of unlocks what it comes down to, the single person billion-dollar company. I think, if that happens, and it can, right? That's great. It's paving the way for new versions, new way of thinking, of doing things. But if you're trying to, that's also a very difficult feat, right? And I would say is that don't stack the cards against you wherever you're missing in being able to scale and build and grow a company, right? Understand you can't do everything and that you do need a team around you or team with you, whether it's your equals, right, co-founders, etc. You need someone to build and grow the business, right? You need to kind of expand and heck, use ChatGPT to explore this. What are all the major key roles and items for a sustainable and scalable business, right? And then see see which ones you check the boxes on, right? And the ones that you don't, those are the people that you need to bring into whatever you're trying to build out. Yeah. I would also, I'll expand on that too, Gary. It's so there's a bit of it that's really interesting. I think that's happening, right? Is that in the beginning with it, there was a huge flood of Just any data is great data to be able to feed the beasts of these LLMs, right? With all the parameters, et cetera. And now it's looking at what is good data, right? Good data in, good product out kind of scenarios. And I think what's happening is that there's this huge amount of brain trust that is being lost in these companies, right? Where I think that there's only so many people, right? I'll just bring this back and kind of use this more as an analogy, right? But in the media and entertainment space, there's only so many people that are the best riggers for animation characters that are out there in general. So if it's only bad versions of that a tool is analyzing as and being told that it's good, there it's never going to get beyond a certain level to be a professional quality tool, right? So I think where there's going to be this huge wave is actually these people who have been in industry being able to support and bring the tools up to a level where they're completely professional, right? And it's also tools that are not going to be all the same exact one, but it's again purpose built agents, right? That are, I need to do this task. I'm going to get this done in this complete silo in this system, and it can interact with other agents that are part of this entire thing. But it also goes back to the question, that just was about the army of one. Yeah, it can be an army of one, but there's 100 agentic AIs that are supporting the person that are running full time. You know. Well, don't make it boring. That's the first thing. If you look at it as being boring, then it's going to be boring, and that energy is going to be the output that anyone who sees it is, right? Um, I don't think presentations need to be boring necessarily, right? Again, it comes down to storytelling. Even if you're looking at big data sheets, big information, right? Figure out a way to make it really interesting. You know, even if you're not funny, trying to make it funny, right? Not saying throw in dad jokes by any means, right? But it's the type of thing where you just you don't want people to think that, oh, this is dry, this is dull, this is boring, right? Because then if that, you're just not going to get any inspiration, right? Make it evocative, make it inspiring, right? The person the investor at the end, or the person you're selling to at the end, needs to feel the passion behind, why are you doing this? Why do you love the number one so much, right? Like, if all you're trying to do is sell the number one, why do you just want to sell the number one, right? Talk about its shape, talk about all these, whatever it needs to be, right? That's a little bit silly of an example, right? But at the basis for it is just, continue to just not look at it as being such a mundane thing, because that isn't going to help you in the long run. So yeah, and sometimes you just need to get out of it, right? So if you are stuck in it and you're like, it's the only thing I've been looking. It's the only thing, that's on your mind, etc. Go for a walk. Go do something to get your mind off of it. People talk about where you can get some of the best ideas just from standing in the shower, right? And there is this whole no, like it's there's a whole psychological experiments and research behind it too, whatever, right? It unlocks some certain things, right? Splash face on your just water on your face, that can do similar impacts or whatever you need to do, but go be inspired, get inspired and knock out of it. So yeah. I think again, it's going back to how to use things as a professional tool that's out there, right? I think there's, I think it's you're going to be able to reduce the cost, if you will, right? Not talking about cheap animation or anything for free, right? But if you're empowering people who are some of the best storytellers that are out there to be able to build and develop their some of the original stories that are out there that doesn't need 150 million, $250 million to share it. I think it's going to unlock a renaissance, right, for original storytelling out there. I also think that it's really interesting because I use this as an example all the time, right? And this can be used in this case or anything else. But it's like me jumping into a Ferrari, right? And I've amateurly raced cars, if you will, done track days, things like that. But I'm nowhere near a pro by any means, right? I can make the Ferrari go extremely fast, right? I can hit the pedal, and it's going. Go take turns tighter, tight, and it'll be fun, etc. Right? But then you throw in a professional race car driver, and you see things that the car probably shouldn't be able to do because they just know how to maneuver all the variables that are happening with it. And that's what I think that we're going to start to see here. There's a lot of pushback. It's like, I don't know what this is going to look like, what it's going to be. I think there's shortcomings, and I think that in general, across the board, and I think that with the technologists, like right now, I think that there's a pretty big gap, like not just a valley, it's like almost like the Grand Canyon right now between the technologists and the creatives, and there needs to be a bridge, not just creative technologists, right? But I think like true conversation of what is needed, right? Because even so, there was an amazing conference. A good friend named Todd Razas puts it on, and but it was called AI on the Lot last week, and literally everyone is talking about how you can only get 15 seconds out of video generation right now. Even saw a movie that was done by Higgsfield. It was quite interesting. I thought it was really phenomenal, and I think there's a lot of learnings that can come out of it. But when you're limited to those things, it needs to kind of progress to the next place. But what you can do is that and this has been some of the things that we've done, is that we can actually use the process to then re-inform and actually show off the various styles of where we want to lock in what that style, look, feel for that IP ecosystem is. And then we're able to actually get good data out of that and then recycle it through and getting these really good outputs, right? So I guess, just to peel it back and reel it back into everything, I think that where things are going and with these amazing tools, right? It's unlocking people, with the various distribution ways to distribute that are out there, right? Vertical content is now a huge thing, micro dramas, etc. Whether it's going to TikTok, whether it is going to YouTube, whether it's going to Instagram, all the various elements that are out there, people are able to stair step in a much easier way, where they don't have to find a major distribution deal for a TV show or a feature film to get traction. And you can also start to do very short clips and snippets to get to see where things lie with the audience that you want to target to be engaged around it as well.
Always insightful. I got some fun questions from Dr. Paxmore before we get a couple more in. So going back, where's Dr. Paxmore's going? Good stuff. So first thing that he says, I can't wait for Claude or ChatGPT to make a robot so I can physically abuse it. Nothing hate more than these LLMs. So it's definitely some pushback on some of these things. He does. Oh, now I can be heard for some reason. I didn't do anything different, but all of a sudden, people on Twitch can hear me. So wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad it's at the final moments. But this is like, he's got two interesting questions. One, and you can use the use case because I understand like some of what you're saying in the context of this, but why would I want to watch an AI generated movie? I think that's a good question, just in general. But in the context, I think of what you're talking about, and you can correct me, it's more about running early kind of validation tests to kind of test like the concept of things, correct?
Yeah, I mean, so what I would look at it as, right, is that again, it's not like AI's. It's this isn't just hitting a button and then you're getting a result of a movie, right? I mean, people have done that, but it's really, really, really bad, right? And you can see all the issues with it that are around it, right? What I'm talking about is that people are using this as a tool, again, right? And it's not the complete solution. It isn't only doing AI, et cetera. But I think it's really phenomenal. Going back to the conference last week, there's a new Ben Kingsley. I guess it's like a 3 episode like epic, so it's kind of like a feature TV show. It's from like the House of David folks over at Amazon, but basically they're saying it would cost hundreds of millions of dollars to do what they were able to do. They did really quick turnaround on on writing it and filming it, etc. And the look that has already been shown off is pretty phenomenal. I suggest people look at the trailer, but that was, let's call it AI enhanced, not replacing an entire team of people. They had a huge team still on the movie, and it still had like a budget, I think, of 70 million. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I heard. Um, and but again, it's using industry professionals, right, to being utilizing a tool to get a lot more output and work done, where this would have been cost prohibitive to do. And it looks like it was filmed everywhere, and they did do location things and stuff like that, but it was filmed at this one stage on the Amazon lot, apparently. So
Right on. There's
I think
another,
that's an example where
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not so much like watching an full AI generated movie, right? Again, it's a tool that's being utilized, right? It's the same thing of like, you know, I think people need to go away from like, okay, this was done using AI. I don't lead, like, say you're pitching a novel that you just wrote. You don't go into the publisher and pitch it and say, yeah, this was used using Microsoft Word first, right?
yeah. There's another question I want to go back to that was really important that Dr. Paxmore asked. And I think this is for everyone to understand. It kind of touches on some of the themes that we were talking about. Why do we want to rely on investors for success?
Um, I don't think you necessarily have to if you don't need to. I think the true thought of, let's just call it private money, venture capital, right, was because banks weren't able to provide the financial support to launch or to allow a company to grow and scale. So if you don't have to raise, don't, right? If you're able to do things kind of solo again, like this company of one for 1 billion, great, right? But if it is the need to have that sort of investment, right, or have the reliance on an investor because you need to rapidly scale because you have to go to market quicker than anyone else, that is the name of the game in many of these AI companies, is that everyone is kind of working on similar things. And it's the first person to go to market with it starts to win, and they get more traction. And then all of a sudden, the other companies come out with something. For example, one of them was like having an agent within the system for some video generation stuff, image generation, and then suddenly they realized that all of a sudden there was a kind of domino effect of everyone else doing it. There's some theories around that, but don't have time to go into it. But I think going back to the question around the investor side is that if you don't have to rely on an investor, then don't. But also, if it is a type of thing where you're in a place that is stuck, that you do need, let's call it, to add headcount, if you need it to fulfill POs because you're doing kind of a consumer product good scenario, there's a whole entire variety of things for it, of reasons to have investors. And if it works for what you're specifically doing, do that. But don't make the assumption that, I have an idea, I need to have an investor. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's appreciated. Because again, like it's about use case and taking the time to contextualize your unique situation. what you're trying to do, what resources you currently have, the limitations you currently have, and what is necessary to move forward to the next stage of your business life cycle, the product life cycle, and all that. And I think it is important for everyone to understand that when you're first starting out, you should not make your strategy to build your business, start your business, as a deal that you need to pitch to investors. You need to be focused on how you're going to generate revenue on day one and what's required to do that. Again, within your unique context, the resources you have and the restrictions that you have, given, you know, the size of your team, the knowledge base you have, experience, all those things. We've got, I think, one more question because we got to go. William asks, what's the fastest way to contact and sign up tons of mom and pop indie leasing companies, property managers as clients?
Um, Again, this comes back to like really like your marketing plan and stuff like that. I think, uh, you know, I would say that really comes down to you, right? How many people can you talk to in, you know, um, how many people can you approach in a day, right? And how many people of those can you convert to having a 5 minute phone call to, right? And so that kind of turns into what you're able to then accomplish and get them to sign up and onboard, right? Do you automate this entire process, right? Do you use OpenClaw to kind of create an assistant that is making all these calls and outreaches out, and then when someone says yes, then you're able to pick up the phone immediately and talk to them. Are they just looking for resources and information? I would say it's that's the fastest way to do that is to have a very polished and very adaptable marketing plan that works for the construct again of how you're working. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, one more came in if you got time for it. All right, Slayer Darth.
Sure.
All right,
Then I'll
perfect.
jump.
Perfect. Slayer Darth asks if I can ask a follow-up question of Blake. When it comes to your animated content, whether that's fully or partly generated by AI, are there certain aspects of the creative process for those products that you don't think should be outsourced to AI, like coming up with the script? And specifically for your live action and animation content, what software that you typically associate with either space, such as Toon Boom for 2D animation, hasn't been fully replaced by AI? Are people seeing this as AI replacing the need for animation software rather than being used for streamlining workflows?
Yeah, so we're not an AI studio. Everything that we've developed is backstopped without using AI. We're utilizing AI as a tool to advance and being able to accomplish things even further. The final output is not AI. The initial inputs are not AI either. Or the creatives that are on team are former Disney, former Pixar, DreamWorks, etc. Right? Quite stacked people who some of them actually come to pre CG animation. And so I guess that being said, I think that again, it's not looking at it as a replacement. It's looking at it as a tool to advance where the things are. I've used this as an analogy, right, of why image generation can be good is that you can rapidly iterate to then pinpoint what you're actually talking about. You can be in a writer's room, you can be in a just conference room or whatever it is, and I can explain a scene of picturesque. It's picturesque, right? There's a lake, there's a forest, there's a clearing, there's a log cabin with smoke coming out of it. There's a deer drinking from water with menacing eyes across in the distance that are peering on it. What I just explained in my mind looks completely different to every single other person that it just came into. But if you can actually lead people to this is exactly what I'm looking at, or this is exactly what I'm thinking and imagining, it brings people on the same page. So it actually is cleaning up time, right? So then you can pinpoint it. That can then turn into a lot more work too. But again, I'm not looking at AI as a replacement or anything like that. I'm looking at it as a way to get creatives their stories. Not ends and with stories. It's not just what the script is, right? But it's so much more. If anything is truly fully AI generated, it is not copyrightable. It's not your IP, and so you have to then go through the system. And I would say, don't do that, because then you will have no rights, and everyone else can use the things that you just created as well. So yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. Do you have a hard stop right now?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely over. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
As always.
great. I appreciate all of it. So we can pick it up with some fun AI conversations another time too. So
Yeah, yeah. I love that you're gonna be back with us every month again. So thank you so much for
of course,
your amazing generosity in helping not only me but the whole community learn and hopefully,
of
yeah,
course.
grow and find inspiration. Do you have any final thoughts, final things you want to share before we head
Yeah,
off?
no, I mean, again, I'm just going back to it, right? It's there's a lot of I think there's no use of AI, since we're just on the topic of that. The use of AI isn't to replace. I think some people do think that, right, and things like that. But I just see it as another tool. And there's a lot of tools that are in our resources, that are analog, that are digital, that are the gambit in between, right? There's so many that are out there, and I think that this is a very good tool. But I think that the human spirit, the innovation, the brain, right? Again, go back, watch this interview if you have the time to. The CEO from Rockstar Games, you'll be able to find it. Like, do CEO Rockstar, parent company of Rockstar Games, and AI. But it's also like, you need humans. You need humans, and people that I think people that are trying to replace headcount and they're using the excuse of AI. Most of them are coming back saying, like, we messed up, right? So I think that just looking at ways to get more output, and not replacing, that's the name of it. So with that, I'll leave you all be. I'll see you tomorrow, Gary, for happy hour. So
Yeah,
yep.
super excited. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you everyone for the wonderful questions and joining us, and apologies for the weird technical issues that just worked themselves out somehow. So awesome. All right. Take care,
All
everyone.
right.
See you later.